In the heart of West Africa, where ancient forests whisper secrets older than memory itself, there exists a presence known only to those who have earned the right to feel it. The Akan people speak of Bia in hushed, reverent tones, a guardian spirit neither fully seen nor entirely unseen, but always watching, always protecting. When lightning illuminates the night sky without thunder following, the elders nod knowingly. When animals fall suddenly silent in the densest parts of the forest, children are quickly ushered indoors. When lost travelers find their way home through impossible circumstances, offerings of gratitude are left at the edges of villages. But who or what is Bia? Is it merely a myth crafted to explain the inexplicable? Or does something truly extraordinary move through the lands of the Akan people, something as ancient as the Red Earth itself? Join me as we explore the legend, the history, and the living mystery of Bia, the mystical guardian of the Akan lands. The story of Bia begins not with gods or kings, but with the land itself. The Akan people, whose kingdoms would eventually include the powerful Ashanti Empire, have inhabited the forests and grasslands of what is now Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire for thousands of years. Within their rich spiritual tradition, Bia occupies a unique position. Unlike Nyame, the sky god, or the various nature deities known as Abuzum, Bia was never worshipped as a deity requiring regular sacrifice or elaborate ceremony. Instead, the earliest accounts describe Bia as something older, a consciousness arising from the land itself, predating even the first human settlements. The name Bia in the Twi language has multiple interconnected meanings: secret, hidden wisdom, and sacred oath. This linguistic complexity reflects Bia's multifaceted nature in Akan cosmology, a guardian that both protects knowledge and upholds sacred covenants between humans and the land they inhabit. Ancient carvings found near Kumasi depict a formless presence represented by intricate spiral patterns surrounding human figures. These artifacts, dating back nearly a millennium, are believed to be the earliest physical representations of Bia, not as an entity with defined features, but as an encompassing, protective force. What makes the Bia tradition particularly fascinating is how it differs from the more hierarchical spiritual systems found throughout West Africa. The earliest oral histories suggest that Bia was not created by higher gods, nor did it demand subservience from humans. Instead, it emerged as a natural consciousness of the land, an embodiment of the delicate balance between the people and their environment, serving as both guardian and reminder of sacred responsibilities. Bia in Akan cosmology. To understand Bia's significance, we must first grasp the foundations of Akan spiritual thought. For the Akan, the universe exists in layers of reality: the visible world of humans and nature, the ancestral realm where the departed continue to influence community affairs, and the domain of spiritual entities ranging from minor local spirits to the supreme creator Nyame. Within this complex cosmology, Bia occupies a liminal space, neither fully spirit nor deity, but something scholars have described as a conscious principle or embodied wisdom of the Akan territories themselves. The traditional belief holds that Bia was present when the first Akan ancestors arrived in the forest regions. Rather than conquering or claiming the land, these early settlers are said to have formed a covenant with Bia, promising to live in harmony with the forests, rivers, and wildlife in exchange for protection and prosperity. This covenant established the fundamental principles of Akan environmental ethics that would guide their civilization for centuries. Never take more than you need, always give back to the land, respect the knowledge hidden within nature, and remember that the community includes not just the living but also ancestors, unborn generations, and the countless non-human beings sharing the territory. Akan folklore is filled with cautionary tales of those who violated these principles: hunters who killed indiscriminately, chiefs who exploited the land for personal gain, and communities that forgot their obligations to maintain sacred groves. In each story, Bia's response is not portrayed as vengeful punishment but as a necessary restoration of balance, often described as the land withdrawing its blessing until proper amends were made. This subtle approach to spiritual ecology made Bia particularly resistant to colonial efforts to eradicate indigenous beliefs. While more visible deities with temples and formal priesthoods faced direct suppression, Bia's formless, ubiquitous presence in everyday Akan life proved impossible to eradicate. Though rarely described as taking physical form, Akan tradition identifies numerous ways Bia makes its presence known throughout the territories. The most commonly reported manifestation is what locals call a framohan, forest light, described as a soft greenish-gold illumination that appears in dense forest areas, typically when someone is in dire need. Countless stories tell of hunters lost after dark, children who have wandered too far from their villages, or travelers caught in sudden storms who report being guided to safety by these mysterious lights that move with apparent intelligence. Another manifestation occurs during times of environmental crisis. Elders speak of asay sahamka, earth tremors, subtle vibrations in the ground that precede natural disasters. These tremors, distinctly different from ordinary seismic activity, are said to provide just enough warning for communities to prepare or evacuate before floods, landslides, or severe storms. Geological records show the Akan regions have indeed experienced fewer catastrophic losses from natural disasters than neighboring territories with similar environmental conditions. Perhaps most intriguing are the accounts of sun-summed sakri, spirit transformation, where animals behave in extraordinary ways that benefit humans in distress. These include birds that lead people to water during droughts, normally predatory animals that protect vulnerable humans, or creatures appearing repeatedly in dreams to warn of impending dangers to the community. Skeptics might dismiss these phenomena as coincidence, psychological projection, or exaggerated folklore. Yet anthropologists studying Akan communities have noted the remarkable consistency of these accounts across different regions and generations, suggesting a shared experience that transcends simple myth-making. What's particularly noteworthy is how Bia's manifestations almost always serve to maintain balance, rather than bestow special advantages. The guardian does not make certain individuals wealthy or powerful, but instead protects community well-being and sustainable relationships with the environment. While Bia has no designated temples or formal priesthood, certain individuals within Akan society have traditionally served as interpreters and keepers of the guardian's wisdom. The Bian Kwancharefo, pathfinders of Bia, were elders chosen not through hereditary succession or political appointment, but through demonstrating exceptional ecological understanding and ethical character. Often these individuals reported pivotal encounters with Bia's manifestations during their youth, experiences that fundamentally changed their relationship with the natural world. Unlike conventional religious authorities, the Nkwankiarifo held no special power beyond their wisdom and example. Their primary responsibility was maintaining knowledge of sacred sites within Akan territories, places where Bia's presence was particularly potent, including ancient groves, unusual rock formations, river confluences, and caves containing underground springs. These sacred sites served as natural archives of biodiversity, protected from hunting and agriculture by their spiritual significance. Modern ecological surveys have confirmed that these areas typically contain plant species of exceptional medicinal value and often serve as crucial habitat for rare wildlife. Scientific validation of the traditional wisdom that identified these locations as special. The Nkwankiarifo were also responsible for interpreting signs of imbalance in the relationship between communities and their environment. If game became scarce, crops failed unexpectedly, or unusual patterns appeared in weather or animal behavior, these elders would guide the community in determining what aspect of their covenant with Bia had been neglected and how proper balance could be restored. Perhaps most importantly, they preserved the Bian Sem, the sayings of Bia, a collection of proverbs, ethical guidelines, and ecological knowledge passed down through generations. These teachings weren't recorded in written form until the 20th century, but were instead encoded in stories, songs, and artistic symbols that made them accessible to everyone in the community, regardless of formal education. The arrival of European powers in West Africa presented an unprecedented challenge to traditional Akan relationships with their lands and guardian spirits. Colonial exploitation of natural resources, forced religious conversion, and disruption of indigenous knowledge systems threatened to sever the ancient covenant with Bia. Yet historical records from this period contain fascinating accounts suggesting that Bia's presence adapted to these new threats. Colonial forestry officials reported inexplicable difficulties in accessing certain areas marked for logging, equipment failures, sudden illness among workers, and disorientation even with the aid of maps and compasses. Some territories designated for exploitation were eventually abandoned as impractical, despite their obvious resource value.